All right, today we're going to talk about a technique that's so simple you can learn it in like 5 minutes, but it's powerful enough to solve some of your biggest, most annoying problems. It's called the 5 whys. So let's jump right in. You know that feeling, right? You're staring down a problem and it just feels impossible. Like you have no idea where to even begin looking for an answer. But here's the thing. The clues are almost always right there. You and your team probably know way more than you think you do. And this is where our hero comes in, the 5 whys technique. It's really just a simple method for digging past all the surface level noise of a problem to find what's really going on, the root cause. It helps turn that frustrating mystery into a clear path forward. So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at the power of asking why to really drill down to the root of an issue. Then we'll flip that script and see how you can use the same logic to build plans. We'll also talk about getting your team involved for the best results. And finally, and this is super important, we'll go over the common traps that can completely derail your investigation. Okay, so let's get into the heart of it. This is where you put on your detective hat. The goal here isn't just to find an answer, it's to find the answer. You know, the one that makes sure this problem never ever happens again. All right, let's use a really simple everyday example to see how this actually works. Imagine this. You walk into a room, and there's a growing puddle of water on the floor. A classic whodunit, right? So where do we start? Easy. We ask our very first why. Okay, why number one? Why is there a puddle on the floor? A quick look around gives you a pretty obvious answer. Rain is getting into the building. Now here's where most people would stop, right? They'd just grab a mop and a bucket and call it a day. But a true investigator, they keep digging. So that leads us to our second why. Why is rain getting into the building? We look up, and yep, the answer becomes pretty clear. The roof is dripping. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. We're moving past the symptom, the puddle, to a more direct cause. Time for why number 3. Why is the roof dripping? Well, a dripping roof usually means one thing, doesn't it? There's a hole. This is a huge step. We've just identified a specific physical problem that actually needs to be fixed. But we're not done just yet. We've got to ask our fourth why. Why does the roof have a hole in it? The answer? There was a massive storm last night and it caused some serious damage. Okay, now we understand the event that actually led to the problem in the first place. And here we are at our fifth and final why. Why was the storm the real root cause here? Well, because it was a one-off event, and this is the light bulb moment. By figuring out the storm was the trigger, we know that simply patching that hole is a permanent solution. See, if the cause was something like, I don't know, years of poor roof maintenance, we'd have a totally different root cause, and we'd need a completely different solution. And this old proverb just nails the whole concept, doesn't it? It shows how a tiny, almost invisible problem, a single missing nail, can snowball into a complete disaster. The 5 whys technique is all about helping you find that missing nail before you end up losing the entire kingdom. But check this out. This is where it gets really cool. This whole investigative approach isn't just for looking back at things that went wrong. You can actually flip it completely on its head to build plans for the future. So let me introduce you to its sister technique, the 5 hows. Let's break down the difference because it's pretty straightforward. The 5 whys looks backward. It's retrospective. It's for diagnosing a problem and finding that root cause. The 5 hows, on the other hand, looks forward. It's prospective. It's all about building a plan and mapping out the exact steps you need to take to get something done. Let's see it in action. Let's say our big goal is to increase profit. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, the most direct path is to increase our income. Simple enough. But how do we increase income? By increasing our sales volume. Right. And how do we do that? We need to ramp up our marketing. How? By making more contact with customers. And finally, how do we make more contact? We generate new leads. And just like that, in 5 simple hows, we've turned a really vague goal into a very specific, actionable first step. Now, this technique is great if you're working alone, but it is a total game changer with a team. But, and this is a big but, you have to assemble the right team. The quality of your answers is going to depend completely on who you have in that room. And once you get that team together, you have to watch out for something called the hippo effect. No, not the animal. It stands for the highest paid person's opinion. It's that thing that happens when the boss or a senior person throws out an idea and suddenly everyone else goes quiet. For a real investigation, you need every single voice to be heard, not just the loudest or the most senior. So who should be on the invite list? You definitely want a mix of experience levels, some senior folks, some junior folks. But the most important people, the ones you absolutely have to have in that room, are the people on the front lines, the people who are actually doing the work where the problem is happening. Why? Because they see things that management just can't. This is a perfect real-world example. Imagine senior management sees some spots in a paint finish, and their first thought is, oh, it must be dust in the air. It's a reasonable guess from their perspective. But the person actually on the paint shop floor, they know the real story. They know the metal parts are still wet from cutting fluid when they arrive for painting. See, without that frontline perspective, you'd waste all your time and money trying to solve the wrong problem. Okay, so you've got your dream team assembled. You're ready to start investigating. But hold on. It is incredibly easy for these conversations to get sidetracked. You have to watch out for common traps or red herrings that can lead you completely down the wrong path. There are 4 main traps you really need to watch out for. First up is the refraining statement. This is basically just an excuse that stops the analysis dead in its tracks, like saying sales were down because it was raining. Next is the reflective statement, and this is all about blaming someone or something else, like, oh, a new competitor opened up. Then you've got 10 gentle statements. These might sound related, but they don't actually get you any closer to the root cause. And finally, you have to shut down detractor statements. These are just emotional, off-topic comments like, well, they just don't build things like they used to. Totally unhelpful. All right, let's wrap this all up into a simple toolkit you can start using today. First, commit to asking why at least 5 times. You've got to push past those easy surface-level answers. Second, remember, you can flip the script and use how to build your plans for the future. Third, and I can't say this enough, always involve your frontline team. They are your secret weapon. And finally, just be on the lookout for those conversational traps, blame, excuses, and random distractions. So the big takeaway here is that you haven't just learned one new skill. You really learned 2. It's one simple framework that gives you a powerful tool for looking backward to solve problems, and another one for looking forward to build plans. It's a 2-for-1 deal for becoming a better thinker, really. So, I'm going to leave you with this question. Think about that one problem you're facing, that one challenge at work that just seems totally impossible. Now that you have this tool, what's the first why you're going to ask?